Hi everybody, Rick Kemper here at Western Wyoming Community College with some words for my online technical writing students about the very important topic of using sources correctly in our research reports. We are underway. You guys have already finished your first harvest of sources, looking in a variety of specific directions to gather a wealth of information that we can use for these career reports. Our goal to deliver a message for people interested in this career who don't know much about it. Our job is to inform them. Okay, well, we're not doing it alone. We've got all these other voices, these other experts weighing in with their ideas, their thoughts, their direct words. How do we do it correctly? How do we use other people's stuff, as we all want to do when we borrow things? We want to give credit. We want to take good care of other people's things when we borrow them, whether these things are objects or words. All right. Well, you've all had some training in English 1010 about the skills of quoting, summarizing, paraphrasing, documenting. Let's talk together for a little bit today and get our technical writing version of it. All right. There is a handout, a file, I should say, on our Unit 6C course website for, it's called 4 tips, 4 keys to using outside sources. And I'd like to talk us through this, give us some of my perspectives on these various tips. All right, I don't know what this thing's doing up there. Let's get rid of it. All right. So we all know the obligation to give credit to the sources, to other people's exact words. Nobody will doubt the fact that we need to put into quotation the exact words of any of our sources. They own them, right? In the same way that I own a car that I might lend to someone else, okay? And at the same time, we are also obligated to give credit not just to people's exact words, but to their ideas or their particular facts, all right? In other words, if I rephrase somebody's ideas, put them into my own words, if I take someone's particular facts and maybe change the wording a little bit, I still have to give these people credit because they're the ones who came up with the ideas or found or researched the particular facts, okay? Giving credit means a 2-step process. We're using, as you know, the MLA documentation system, but whatever system we'd be using, that you may be using, you're obligated to list the sources used at the end of the paper in works cited listings. You know something about that already. We've been doing it also in the paper itself. We have to give a symbol, a signal in parentheses that connects to the works cited. All right, so it's a 2-part process of documentation. All right, common knowledge need not be cited. And this is an interesting point to touch on. We want to do the right thing. We want to give people credit. Why not? But we don't have to give credit for things that are facts that are in the, that all of your sources might be reporting, or historical facts or facts of public record. I don't need to document who the vice president, the 13th vice president of the United States was, although I don't know who it is at the moment. I don't need to document the current senators from the great state of Rhode Island, although I may not know who they are. Those are facts, historical and public facts. So there's that kind of material that doesn't need documenting. But there's also something like if all your sources say, well, this career of nursing is going to grow in the next 5 years. If all the sources are reporting a growth trend, maybe that general fact does not need citing, right? But if you're quoting from a particular source that says in the next 5 years we project a 17% growth in the need for nurses, if you got particular facts like that, those are the things that would require documentation. All right? When in doubt, document is something that we can say as well. We don't want to go crazy wondering if something is common knowledge or not. Okay, but that's our obligation. And we embrace it. Nobody wants to take stuff from somebody else. All right. Let's move on to point 2 here, and this is similar, related, but different from the first point of giving credit. Okay, the second point is the need to establish the credibility of our sources. Point number 1, I'm acknowledging ownership, right? Point number 2 kind of is directed more towards the readers of my essay. Why should the people reading my essay believe the sources that I'm citing, right? How do they know if those sources are worthwhile? You know, the World Wide Web these days. There might be some crazy guy up the street in his garage posting websites, posing as an authority, right? You know, it's our job as the writers to establish the credibility, the believability of our sources. Okay, so our readers feel confident that they are in good hands. All right, this is a little bit different, and this takes it a little bit further than many of you have gone in your writing. We all know about documenting, and we struggle to do the right thing, right? And we help each other do the right thing. Here's something that is not in parentheses in a paper, but as you can see here, in the body of the paper itself. All right. When you're introducing, when you're quoting or paraphrasing a fact from a source, introduce the person by his or her name and title beforehand. Give a fact or two that demonstrates the expertise of the person. We'll see lots of examples of this. I'll point to in our model student essays for one thing. So, Dr. John Collins, comma, a professor of political science at Stanford University, comma, gives this perspective, colon. Put something like that before a quotation instead of just dumping a quotation in a text and having Collins in parentheses, right? You're quoting from a website, perhaps of a professional organization. Start prior to the quotation, say something like this: the American Society of Social Workers gives this projection about the growing need for new people in the profession, colon, right? Naming the organization up front prior to the actual quote or paraphrase, all right? The establishing of credibility of sources. Must we do this every single time we quote or paraphrase? No. Certainly on the first reference of a major source, you establish the credibility, and then later on in the essay, you might quickly remind people of the source that you're going back to if you're using the same source more than once. Later in my essay, I might say, Stanford's Professor Collins also predicted. All right? So a quick comparison here. Think of yourself as the host on a talk show, right? On the late night TV talk show. The guests don't storm the stage. The guests don't push you out of the way. Rather, the host, this is your scene, your essay, you introduce them, you call them onto stage, you say something about them, right? You're the one in control. All right, let's move on to point 3. Keep control of your report. All right, the same thing here. These reports can get very heavy with quotations and other people's stuff. Well, you don't want to vanish from your own report. How do you stay present in your report? A quick look at the points here. The key parts of the essay, the introduction, the thesis area, the topic sentences, the conclusion, they should be, by and large, in your own words. As we were just saying, you're the host of this party. You're introducing sources in advance. You're commenting on sources afterwards, the way a talk show host engages in conversations with her guests, right? You don't let the guests take over the scene. You don't overquote. You don't surrender big parts of the essay to the language of another source, right? Use only what you quote, only what you need. Paraphrase and summarize some of the larger passages, all right? And then finally, keeping control of your report. Very important point we'll soon see illustrated. In any section of your report, gather 2 or more, 3 sources from different places to support each point of your essay. So you're the person inviting multiple voices into your essay instead of just turning it over to the Occupational Outlook handbook or something. Use 2 or more sources to support each point of your essay. All right. The fourth and final point, we'll quickly mention here, this is something we work on with our guidebooks, our citation machines that we may be using online. Observe the conventions, right? As we struggle, as we work to use sources correctly, we say, okay, I'm working with the MLA system. Let me find my models, my guides, in order to do it correctly. There's certain expectations of how I will punctuate quotes or use quotation marks. I'll do my best using my sources to abide by them. All right, let me pause this for a moment. At this point, I would ask you to pause this video, to go to the Unit 6C assignment folder, find the assignment called Incorporating Sources into Your Report, and to take some time to give it a first read. Okay, I have got about 3 minutes here to talk through it with you, but give it a first read and then come back, and I have a few things to say about it here. All right? So, you've just done that. This week's assignment is to write a section of your report in which you do just what we were talking about with that 4 tips to using sources correctly. All right? Write a section of your report, the education section, the job description, job outlook. You decide, following these instructions, at least 300 words, possibly and probably even more, in which you use at least 3 sources, bringing 3 sources together that talking about the same thing, the job outlook, the education needed, something like that. These are the instructions here. We don't have time to read out loud together, but I'll point out a few things in this model from Katie Pirantoni, a student from some years ago. This is a section of Katie's essay about pharmacy, the job description section. There's the section heading, and as you read, as you study this model, you will see that the things we were just talking about are illustrated in Katie's writing. She is the one in control. At the start of this section, in her own words, she talks about what pharmacists do. Her own voice, in a very nice way. You get a sense of Katie's voice, right? And then she introduces a source, just like we were saying up front. She introduces a source there, then she quotes. The documentation is afterwards, okay? She does a little paraphrasing. She does not want to quote too much, so she, using the same source, she puts some of the language in her own words. She still needs to document because it's the idea of the source, all right? Working through Katie's example, as you will, you see the same pattern. The topic sentence in the writer's own words, the sources introduced, C. Edwin Webb, director of, etc., the documentation, the writer commenting on the source like the talk show host does in conversation with his or her guests. So Katie, the writer, responding to the source, making another final quick reference to a third source. It's the multitude, it's the gathering of sources and the weaving together of these sources that makes you the one in charge of your report, the author in the truest sense of the word. The assignment ends with the works cited listings for the sources that are used here. Okay, Incorporating sources means bringing the body of the sources into the body of your essay. We've just looked at some tips as to how to do that by introducing, paraphrasing, summarizing our sources. Now it's time for you to roll up your sleeves and have a good crack at this assignment following the instructions on our